The German advance had run into some trouble and immediately lost its momentum. The command decided that slow and steady might be safer than the mad dash they had started with. After having met with strong resistance at the last bridge, the vanguard halted when they reached another bridge by a small village. The position was pummeled by artillery in an attempt to dislodge any ambushers, and then a deliberate approach followed. Leaving behind their transports, the infantry went first to look for any threats to their armor. The forces largely remained the same from last battle, but the Germans made some small changes. They dispensed of their transports for this battle and instead took a foot patrol to have some reconnaissance. The Panzer III squad was exchanged for a single Panzer IIIF and a Panzer IVD. We played the flanking attack scenario from the main rulebook. We got 3 objectives. The first had been placed in the very middle. We then placed one on the bridge and one in the ruined house on the opposite side. The Red Army came driving down the road through the village, while their flanking force of scout cars were tasked with securing the bridge. The German Panzer Division sent a foot patrol to secure the ruined building, while the main infantry push came through the woods on the other side of the road. The scene was set, and a new battle was about to begin. We rolled off for the first turn, and the Red Army took the initiative. We started strong with 2 orders rolled. With limited options, they rushed their BA-10s forward and secured the central objective, forcing the German player to pull a battle counter. The Germans then rolled 4 orders for their first turn. Doing what they could, one infantry team after the other pushed forward while firing small arms fire at the closest armored car. They had no hope of actually damaging it, but they could manage to pin it by rolling a 6. Unfortunately, they couldn't find that 6 they needed. After 2 quick turns, the Soviets could start sending in their reserves. They rolled a 2, and an anti-tank gun and a rifle squad was brought in. They then received 6 orders, potentially getting a better turn than the last one. The front BA-10, after shrugging off the small arms fire, swung its turret towards the advancing infantry and launched a high explosive shell against each of them. The first shell whizzed past and slammed into the ground behind the German soldiers. Shortly after, the second shell slammed into the ground close to the first one, launching dirt into the air. The other BA-10 drove past and scanned the ruins for a target, but was unable to spot any. In the village, a truck drove down the road towards the crossroads and deployed an AT gun near the bridge to defend it. Another truck drove next to it, carrying a rifle squad to help hold the crossroads and support the gun. The AT gun then took aim at one of the rifle squads by the woods and managed to spot it. Another high explosive shell flew past the soldiers, making a crater in Soviet soil. For the last order of the turn, the Soviets sent their mortar team into the intact building, hoping to put some pressure on the foot patrol. But it was out of range. The Germans then used their Panther March to send in the rest of the reserves, hoping to make a strong push before the resistance became too heavy. A Panzer III was deployed by the woods near the buildings, a Panzer IV as far up the flank as it could reach, and the rest of the infantry behind the woods. With 2 officers now on the table, 6 orders were rolled. The first order went to the Panzer III, which was tasked with cleaning up the armored targets on the road. It managed to spot the closest BA-10 and loaded an AP shell. It needed 4 to hit, since they were both moving, and 5 up to penetrate. The shell blasted through the car, destroying it completely. The Panzer IV then moved towards the bridge, aiming to engage the deploy gun. They loaded a Hg shell and fired, needing a 5 to hit. Not a good position for the Panzer. The infantry just moved up into cover, getting ready to engage the enemy. The senior officer also pushed forward, driving up behind the woods to support the troops. With their last order, the MJ team in the ruin again tried to pin down the armored car with suppressive fire, looking for a 6. Still no luck. The Soviets were allowed 2 units from reserve, and decided to send in 2 more rifle squads in the village. They then rolled 5 orders. The AT gun accepted the challenge and engaged the Panzer IV in a duel, needing a 4 to hit and 7 to penetrate. Fresh from the factory, the Panzer IV was reduced to scrap metal before it could put a dent in the Soviet defense. The BA-10 then moved off the road and took aim at the side of the Panzer III. With both vehicles on the move, a 4 was needed to hit. The infantry near the bridge then opened fire on one of the rifle squads in the wood. They started with suppressing fire, forcing the German soldiers to go down. They then followed up with concentrated fire. They managed to spot the Germans and fired off 8 shots. Three of them hit. Only 1 soldier was saved by their cover, and the unit had to take a morale check. The check was failed, and the surviving soldiers decided to get out of there immediately. The mortar team redeployed to the ruin closer to the enemy and took aim at the foot patrol rifle squad. They managed to spot it and scored a hit. Their HE allowed 3 dice at 5+ damage and succeeded on 2 of them. The cover saved 1 German soldier, but another went down. Another morale check was made, but this one was passed. The last order for the Soviets was to pull one of their trucks back to safety. With a decent 8 orders, the Germans had the opportunity to cause some trouble for the Soviets. They started by firing 2 shots with the Panzer III at the BI-10, needing 3s to hit and 5 up to destroy it. Another kill for the Panzer. Keeping up the aggression, the remaining rifle squad in the woods were ordered to give the Soviet infantry hell, first by firing suppressive fire and then ordering up with aimed fire. They needed a 4 to pin them and 2 to spot them. With such poor performance by the soldiers, reinforcements were clearly needed, so the rest of the orders were spent on bringing up the rest of the infantry. The Soviets got half as many orders as the Germans did, but they did have some options. With a T-34 on the table, they now had a strong answer to the dangerous Panzer III. They gave it the Stahl order and sped forward, firing against the foot patrol in the ruin as it went. But it hit nothing. The officer then declared "Ura Ura" to bring the infantry forward and into the fight. The infantry on the road responded by mirroring the Germans' attack. Suppressive fire followed by aim fire. They too needed 4 to pin, but the 3 up to spot them. With a hail of bullets not having any effect, they then tried using high explosive shells instead. The area fire had no effect, but they did manage to spot the Germans, and needed a 3 to hit them. After having no luck with their shooting, the Soviets had to pass the turn to the enemy. The Panzer III moved up, staying in cover behind its previous victim, taking aim at the T-34. With both tanks moving, it needed a 6 to hit. The soldiers in the wood made a new attempt at suppressing the Soviet infantry, still needing a 4 to pin them and 2 to spot them. They had a clear shot and managed to land 5 hits, all of them lethal. Morale test was taken and they were pinned. One of the MG teams moved into the woods and used suppressive fire on the gun. A 4 was needing to pin it, and he got a cover save of 6. For the last order, the Germans moved more infantry in the woods, ready to meet the approaching Red Army. The Soviets rolled only 3 orders, but the commander yelled "Ura, Ura, Ura," and the infantry rushed forward towards the German position. Meanwhile, the T-34 took aim at the lone panzer and fired twice, needing 5s to hit. The first shot hit, but needed 7 to penetrate. It bounced off and the crew's morale held. The second shot also hit, but this too bounced off. However, the crew got nervous and the tank was pinned. For their last order, the Soviets started bringing another AT gun forwards to help hold the Germans back. The Germans rolled 8 orders, and now they suddenly had a lot of targets to fire upon. The German senior officer disembarked from his transport, keeping the woods between him and the enemy infantry. He then attempted a tactical coordination on the panzer to get it back into the fight. A battle counter was pulled, and it was ammo low. It was played on the AT gun on the flank, but it turned out they had just enough ammo to get through the battle. An experience test was made for the panzer, needing a 3 up. The crew remained shaken. It was time to start sending a hail of lead towards the Soviet infantry, starting with the MG team in the woods. The first tried to suppress the enemy on a 4 up, but they made their cover test. They then spotted them on a 3 up and hit on a 5 up. Two soldiers went down, but the rest passed their morale test. The The rifle squad was ordered to do the same, but their suppressive fire was ineffective. They also failed to spot the enemy. The heavy MG team moved forward and opened up with aimed fire, needing 5s to hit. The MG team in the ruin then tried to do the same. Needing 5 to pin the target and 3 to spot them. The rifle squad then tried to pick up the slack. The suppressive fire had no effect, but they managed to spot the target. They scored 3 hits. All lethal. A morale test was made. The cocked die was re-rolled, but they were still pinned. For the last order, the remaining rifle squad in the woods opened fire on the enemy. They needed 4 up to pin them, and 3 up to spot them. Another 3 hits were scored, and none of them saved. A morale test was made, and they failed. Being pinned and heavily shot up, the entire squad was routed. The Soviets received 6 orders and could start pushing back. They started by deploying their gun and pulling the truck back to safety. The newly deployed gun was immediately put into action by opening fire on the closest visible target. It first attempted to suppress them, needing a 5, and then spotted them. The shot, however, flew right past them and hit nothing but trees. The infantry was then ordered to shoot back, hoping to stop the incoming fire. The suppressive fire did nothing, even though they rerolled for being cocked, but they did manage to spot them. 4 hits were scored. The cover granted by the woods saved half the soldiers. But it was enough to pin the squad. The mortar team took aim at the other rifle squad, trying to pin them down as well. It opened with area fire, which needed 5 to be effective. No dice. Direct fire went better. They spotted the target, and scored 2 hits. 1 soldier went down and a morale test was made. The soldiers felt a surge of bravery and defied the incoming mortar fire to open up on the new gun that was brought forth. The 5 remaining soldiers managed to land 4 hits. None of them were saved, so the crew were cut down. The Soviets were forced to pull another battle counter in their own turn. Hoping to strike a blow against the German morale and end the conflict, the T-34 sped forwards and fired upon the enemy's senior officer. They managed to spot the officer squad and launched a high explosive shell. The aim was good, but the movement of the tank threw it off, and the shell whizzed by dangerously close to the officer. The gun on the flank adjusted its position. It was still unable to get a good aim on the Panzer III, so it elected to instead fire high explosive at the rifle squad in the ruin. Unfortunately, they couldn't get a good aim on them either. For the last order, the Soviets pulled their last transport back, away from the fight. They then decided to rally their troops. All units were unpinned and another battle counter was pulled. 5 orders were rolled for the Germans, and they now had the opportunity to take the central objective. Their first order of business was another attempt at tactical coordination on the Panzer. Another battle counter was drawn and an experience test taken. A 1 was pulled, which could be played as a breakdown counter on the unreliable T-34. Again, the Soviet tank was immobilized. Another 3+ experience test was taken for the Panzer. With the enemy tank very close but immobilized, the crew managed to rally to defend themselves. They readied 2 AP shells and took aim. They had a clear shot and needed only 3 to hit and 9 to penetrate the front armor. The first shell made contact but bounced off. A morale test was made and there was potential beyond the call of duty. The experience test was passed as well. The T-34 could fire back before the second shell was loaded. Hit. 6 up was required to penetrate. The Panzer was pinned again and had to take a morale test as well. And another beyond the call of duty. These tank crews had a grudge against each other. Another AP shell was loaded and fired. It hit and punched through the front armor of the Soviet tank. The Panzer barely managed to win that duel and claim its 3rd victim in this battle. The heavy MG team was ordered to take out the bloodied rifle squad. They fired twice, needing 3s to spot them and 5s to hit. The first salvo landed a good 5 hits, and none of them were saved, so it was enough to take them out. The MG team in the woods then opened fire on the infantry by the crossroads, trying to clear their objective. Three hits were scored, none saved, and only 1 man was left standing. He failed his morale test and ran away, so another battle counter was pulled. And with their last order, the Germans sent a rifle squad forward to grab the now cleared objective. But this proved to be unnecessary, as the Soviet morale was already crumbling. And as the Germans pushed forward, the enemy was in a full rout.